Good afternoon. Thank you for joining me for this COVID-19 update. Before I get into the briefing and the specifics, I want to wish a happy birthday to Councilman Matt Carlucci. At this time of self-isolation, I hope that you find a way to celebrate this special day. On the call today to answer questions after we get through the briefing is Sheriff Mike Williams, Fire Chief Keith Powers, and our Emergency Operations Director, Steve Woodard. Also joining us on the call today are student journalists from local schools. Welcome to this briefing, and I look forward to your questions. As I said on Tuesday, these are incredibly stressful, difficult, and confusing times for all of us, including young people. And I feel that it's important that we listen to our children and address the issues and the questions they have. With us today are Tilar from Englewood High School and Hannah from Kernan Middle School. As of this morning, the Florida Department of Health is reporting 589 positive COVID-19 cases in Duval County, 11 deaths. 11 deaths. Thinking about the families that have lost a loved one, and in fact, those that had to die alone. 50 hospitalizations. Our percentage of positive tests is 5.6%, which continues to be below the state average of 10.7. That's below the state average of 10.7 that are in other major metropolitan areas in the state of Florida. This morning, I was informed that one of our first responders, a member of Jacksonville Fire and Rescue Department, tested positive for COVID-19 and is symptomatic. While this individual is on the mend, out of an abundance of caution, 3 shifts linked to this firefighter are being asked to self-isolate until they can be tested and receive results. To that end, this is a reminder of the gravity of the situation, the danger that this virus, this ghost of a virus, poses to our community. This is a moment in time that will define us as a people, how we behave while we're in this crisis. We have to continue to practice social distancing and take this seriously to protect not only our lives, but the lives of other people. We'll also be defined how, when we come out of this, how we work together as a community to recover economically, and all of the other impacts that have come with this isolation, which includes mental health stress, economics, health. There'll be additional health impacts. When we get on the other side of this, we also need to be prepared as a city and as a community for whether another wave of this comes or some other health crisis that could cripple an economy and force people into their homes. This one surprised many, but now we know. So I'm telling you that your city is thinking about ways when we come out of this, how we mitigate really early another wave of this or something else. Our percentage of positive tests remain low because of the efforts all of you are making. Again, by and large, this community has done a great job of taking this seriously, going out only when needed for essential things, and for keeping their distance. I'm seeing more people wear masks now. According to some medical experts, we may start to turn the corner in the next week or two, but this only happens if we practice the social distancing and the hand washing, covering a cough or a sneeze into your arm. As I've said before, this virus doesn't spread itself, it's spread by people. I'd like to remind groups that are contemplating events to take care of those who are in need and are those that are still in the workplace. All events must adhere to the guidance of our emergency orders. Starting next week, the city social services team will facilitate applications and information gathering about how to safely facilitate such events. On Monday, I talked about the CDC recommendation for citizens to wear cloth, face coverings, and masks. This is an effective and easy way for individuals to help stop the spread of COVID-19 in times when they're not able to practice social distancing, such as when you're at a counter in a grocery store. Look, even if you're in a counter at a grocery store, at a drive-through, or a takeout, another takeout place, just be aware of and discipline. If you're handing your credit card, just kind of lean back, keep your distance. That's what I'm doing, even if you have the mask on. And then when you get in your vehicle, clean your hands, clean your card or whatever has been touched by you and another individual. I was also talking to a physician recently that reminded me that a symptom of COVID-19 is lack of smell and taste. So if you don't think you have symptoms, but you're lost or losing your smell and your taste, you need to reach out to a physician for guidance. I want to applaud the responsible companies that are taking steps to protect their customers and employees. Dailies is a prime example. Starting this next week, all Dailies employees will wear masks at their stores. I'm grateful to Aubrey Edge and his team for their leadership in requiring this. Drive-through testing continues at Lot J and through Telescope Health at the Prime Osborne Center. Federal testing concludes this weekend at Lot J. However, Governor Ron DeSantis called me last night to talk about that testing site as the feds wrap up, and he has offered to and agreed to ensure that we continue testing there under the state's guidance. I shared with him last night that it would be a hit to remove a testing site in our community while we're still in the middle of this, and I'm grateful that he has offered to and will be able to continue testing at Lot J. Everything at Lot J will continue as normal. In fact, starting today, more tests for COVID-19 will be available to meet the demand throughout our community. An extra 150 tests per day will be added. Currently, we are conducting 250 per day at this location. That will bring daily tests to 400. In addition, results are starting to come back faster. If you test positive, you'll be notified first and should have results within 3 to 5 days now. Results for negative tests may take an extra 1 to 2 days. Testing at both sites, Lot J and the Prime Osborne, will be closed on Sunday for Easter holiday in order to give our first responders and healthcare workers at testing sites an opportunity to decompress and spend the holiday with their families. While you're at home practicing social distancing, I want to remind you to fill out the U.S. Census. It's 10 questions and takes less than 10 minutes, but it will have a tremendous impact on the future of our community. So far, only about half of our residents have completed the census. What we're experiencing right now with this pandemic is an example of why federal funding is crucial. Federal funds make a huge difference in the support and future of our community. And by the way, they're your tax dollars that go to Washington. We want to bring them back home. For each person not counted, Jacksonville loses approximately $1,500 in federal funding per year. I encourage every citizen to make their mark, go online to 2020census.gov to respond and be counted. That's 2020census.gov. I'd also like to remind people to make a call at 7 o'clock tonight. Call somebody, share with them, listen to them. This is a really easy way to really connect with someone and relieve some stress and have a positive impact on an individual. With the celebration of Passover with our Jewish brothers and sisters this week, as we head into Good Friday and Easter Sunday with our Christian brothers and sisters, it is a reminder that together we get through this. Together, we save lives. Together, we come out of this with faith, hope, and action. Happy Easter to everyone this coming Sunday. To that end, with Good Friday being tomorrow and Easter being Sunday, we will not be doing a briefing tomorrow unless a development occurs or happens that's critical for the public to know. In the meantime, we will, through social media, communicate some of the basic stuff that we've communicated here over the last couple of weeks. With that, I will open it up for questions. Tyler with Englewood High School.
Hi, Mayor Curry. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity and for allowing students to participate in a press conference of this magnitude. My first question is, being a senior in the class of 2020 has not been an easy task during this COVID-19 outbreak. with prom and graduation being canceled or postponed, it's very difficult for a few of me and my peers. My question is, would you be in favor of a combined prom for all Jacksonville seniors, just to honor us somewhere, spacious, such as the Prom Osborne? And how would we go about doing this?
Yeah, well, yes, I would be in favor, and I'm willing to coordinate to make that happen. And let me just speak directly to what you're facing. While it was a long time ago, I remember my senior year. I remember my friends. I remember prom. I remember the excitement of being about to graduate, but B, the enjoyment of being able to spend the spring going into the summer with my friends before people went their own ways to college. So I hate that you're having to experience this, but I applaud you for being strong and courageous, for helping us stop the spread. And I applaud you for thinking about your peers and wanting to do something citywide. So what I'll do is I'll have my team connect with you, and you can help connect us with the right people. And we'll ask the community to help as well to make sure that that we provide some experience that will be memorable for you. Jamarlo with Action News.
Hey, good afternoon, Mayor. Has the city received any reports of, public areas, spaces, streets, littered with plastic gloves? I know a lot of folks have seen this around the city, and is the city doing anything about it? And also, a second question, have you decided how longer the beaches will stay closed?
I'm not personally aware of plastic gloves being littered, but now that you've shared this, I'll follow up when we get out of this briefing. And look, if we've received a complaint, the city will have acted, but I will look into that. In terms of the beaches, I said yesterday, I've talked to the beaches mayors a number of times. I've talked to law enforcement, both our sheriff here in town and law enforcement at the beaches. Look, we want people to be able to walk, exercise, and move on the beach. It's just irresponsible right now, because if you open it for that, there's no way to police, if you will, access points. And a city of 1 million people, a much larger metropolitan area, who've been cooped up in their homes are going to feel the need to get out. And the next thing you know, we have the risk of crowded beaches at a time when we are flattening the curve. So we just got to be responsible. It's a day-to-day thing. I don't see beaches opening today or tomorrow or this weekend, but we do evaluate it on a daily basis. And it is for the health and safety of the people of Jacksonville in the entire metropolitan area. And I know it's painful. I know people want to go, but as I said when I opened, this is our moment. We will be remembered for this. Imagine if we open the beaches for exercise and there's a cluster of people and somebody passes COVID-19, that person becomes a super spreader and our hospitals fill up. It would be irresponsible to anyone in leadership to allow that to happen. Bridget at Action News.
Hi, good afternoon. I have a few questions. First off, with the testing site, since the federal people are pulling out this weekend, are we no longer going to be using their supplies? Are they leaving their supplies here? And are we switching to state supplies once that's run out? And is the state supplies any different? Is it a nasal swab or is it a throat swab? I think you had mentioned in a conference before that the rapid testing from the state would be going to a hospital. Has that changed? Will it be going to Lot J?
Director Woodard or Chief Powers, if you guys could. Lot J will perform as it has been. There'll be no changes there, but I'll let you guys answer. One of you guys answer specifics, or both. You can take turns.
Yes, I'll start with that then, sir. For the public, Lot J should, as we transition, should be transparent to the public, and it really should not be an issue there. The testing does vary depending upon what's available, and there will probably be multiple tests that people will see over the next days and weeks. The supplies that were left over from the federal government will be left with us, and they will actually continue to supply federal PPE as that is needed. Chief Powers?
I think Director Woodard covered it all.
Thank you. Hannah, Kernan Middle.
Hi, Mayor. Kids my age are getting a little restless. What kinds of things are you doing with your family at home to stay busy? Do you have any fun suggestions?
Yeah, well, look, I've got in my house, I've got three young folks as well, a son and two daughters, and I see that they're restless. So a couple of things. We've been playing a lot of cards together. It's interesting. We always are battling to get each other off of our devices. Everybody's tired of the devices now. So we're playing cards, we're talking together. But I tell you, one of the other things I encourage, one of my daughters yesterday is just really missing some of her friends. And I said, look, we have to get through this, and it's difficult and it's painful, but you finish your schoolwork online. Laying around in this house all day is not healthy. So she went out, properly social distance. She went for a run. So go for a run or for a walk. I would encourage you, all people, but get outside. It is not healthy to be frustrated and just cooped up in a house. So again, keep your distance from people, but go outside and move around. Ride bikes. My family and I went for a bike ride last night. We've been on a number of bike rides. Walk your dogs if you have dogs, and just move around. Jim with WJXT.
Mayor, lots of new information today. I'm wondering if the chief or yourself could elaborate a little bit on the firefighter that tested positive. Was it a paramedic? And with 3 shifts now in isolation, what does that mean? And is there any concern for maybe some of the runs that they went on as well? Question on Lot J too. I know I'm putting all of these in here. Why were the feds going to pull out this weekend? Was there a reason behind that? And then I also wonder if you could elaborate a little bit on your talk this morning to business leaders. You had a lot of information in that, and you were talking about the upcoming budget as well, how that's going to be stressed. And I know it's a question people may not like to hear, but in that budget, is there possibly a talk of a property tax increase because of the stress that's being put on this? Thanks.
Yeah, let me start with the budget. Look, as we come out of this, I'm looking at ways to provide relief to people, not to add additional burdens onto them. So I am having no conversations right now or thoughts about putting more tax burden on the people of Jacksonville. People are suffering right now. So the city is, as we saw with stuff we're doing with ViStar, we've got to find other creative ways to help people get back on their feet, to make sure they have jobs and to be able to sustain themselves and their families. As it relates to Lot J, it just had an expiration date. And so that was just the way it was set up, because there's so many unknowns that come with COVID-19. We didn't know then when we set it up, nor did anyone how long this would go. And I just would add that I'm grateful the feds came in and got that testing set up as quickly as they did. We were an early adopter of testing here as a result of that testing site and the testing site we set up at the Prime Osborne. But I want to thank Governor DeSantis. I mean, he is all over the state managing this everywhere. And, he cares about Jacksonville and called me last night to talk about that and has agreed to allow that site to continue on business as usual. Chief Powers, I'll let you address our first responders.
So Jim, first I want to say, I just want to thank our first responders, the police and fire. They're putting their own health in jeopardy responding to this community. And one, that makes me proud as a chief, but two, it lets us know that they're out there, taking care of us every day. But to your question, this is going to affect about 47 Jacksonville Fire and Rescue Department members when we've already put the station down. We'll be backfilling it after we do a thorough cleaning of that fire station. We'll be backfilling it with some additional personnel and put it back online. We'll also be working with those first responders that need to be tested. We'll get every one of those tested in as rapid a form as we can, so we can get them back in the system as soon as they test negative and the medical professionals clear them. But again, that puts our total right now at 63 fire and rescue personnel that are not working because of COVID related symptoms or they've been exposed, and that's taxing on the system. So we're going to have to find creative ways to, to continue our staffing right now.
Ann with First Coast News.
Good morning, Mayor. One quick question. I'm curious what fire station it was, if Chief Powers can answer that, and when he tested positive. But for you, Mayor, on this morning's call, you had an interesting statement that you thought politics died with this crisis. And I wonder if you feel that your own politics are changing, given some of the challenges that you've had to manage.
Look, this is a life-changing event. And when people run campaigns, they're clearly politics aren't going away. They've been here since the beginning of time. That's how elections are run, and that's how they happen. So I'm not judging that. I'd be the last person to pass judgment on that. What I'm saying for myself is we're in a life or death situation right now. And my focus, my remaining time in office is going to be making sure that the city does everything it can to help people get back on their feet, to make sure they have jobs, to make sure they can take care of their families, to make sure they have access to help if they need it, to make sure that the city has worked with local healthcare providers to plan for whether it's another wave of COVID-19 or some other virus that could literally cripple an economy overnight, so that we're doing things on the front end that we can have some sense of normalcy if it comes back and not have to be in complete lockdown. Those are all things we have to study and look at. So when I say, for me, politics is dead, if it's not enhancing the life of someone, if it's not helping people recover, if it's not providing the services the city of Jacksonville needs to provide, I don't want to have any part of it. And that's just where I am. And there was another question, I believe, for Chief Powers there.
And to answer your question on what station it is, it's Fire Station 28 on Hogan Road. That just happens to be our biggest fire station with the most personnel, and it's kind of a worst case scenario, but we're ready for it and we'll work through it. And just so we know, this person that tested positive, we knew about this on the 4th. We pulled that person out of the fire station immediately as soon as he started developing symptoms and got him in quarantine and got him tested. We're just now getting those test results back. But we pulled him out as soon as we knew this was going on.
Mike with the Daily Record.
Yeah, hi, Mayor. Also, in regard to your call with the chamber this morning, you had mentioned that you, after this crisis is over, that you're considering lifting or easing fees for developers. Can you specifically state which fees you're considering and maybe by how much? And would you also consider lifting fees for just the general public and residents?
Well, let me say, there's been no decisions made on what kind of relief we can provide. And any relief is not going to be maybe necessarily targeted to one specific industry or constituency group. What I'm asking my CFO to do, and my Chief Administrative Officer, which they are doing, is going through budget, reviewing anybody, whether it be an individual or business, that has to pay a fee to the city of Jacksonville as a result of their activities, and determining if any of those, if we could provide relief on any of those, if it would in fact help the economy and help individuals. So it's an idea that I have right now. We're going to have to map it out. Look, numbers matter. We have to crunch the numbers. My point to the call folks on the chamber was today is I'd like to be in a position when the president says we're open for business and we're going back to work in a real way, in a big way, the city is positioned to say, okay, we're open for business, and here's the kind of relief we can provide citizens and business people right out of the gate. So I would say all options are on the table. It's got to make sense. Sky with WJCT.
Hey, Mayor. So in South Florida, we've seen a couple of the counties establish where if you're an employee that still has to work now, then you have to wear a mask, you have to wear personal protective equipment. Is that something that you've considered up here in Northeast Florida? And in total, do you see any more restrictions being implemented here, or are you going to try and, settle back from that?
Yeah, so I have thought about masks and whether or not they should be mandatory. The issue again there comes down to enforcement. People ought to just do it voluntarily. I mean, we're not going to be going into businesses looking to see if they're wearing masks. But a homemade mask is easy to make. I posted a video of my daughter Bridget making one a couple of days ago. We can share that with media if anybody's interested. Make masks, and by the way, be smart about how you use the masks. You don't want to cross-contaminate the mask. You don't want to touch something and then put your hand on the front of the mask. You make the mask, you put it on, and hands don't come in contact with it. Was there another part to that question?
Yeah, I was just saying in total, do you see any more restrictions for Duval County?
We evaluate every day whether or not we should lift restrictions or add restrictions. The active conversation is curfew or not. And at this point, we're not going curfew. We don't want to go curfew, but it's certainly an option that's on the table. But I want to stress that, again, when I speak in terms that are very direct about social distancing and healthy behaviors, I'm speaking really to a group of people that aren't practicing these behaviors. Most of what I've seen, people understand the seriousness, and Jacksonville has really pulled together and behaved in a way that is caring for their neighbors. Lou with First Coast News.
Mayor, thanks. So we're talking about unemployment now around 10%. So 1 in 10 don't have their jobs. They've lost their jobs, lost their livelihoods. And there's got to be a critical mass here where we reach a high enough number to where it just doesn't make sense with such a high survivability rate. Do you have an idea of when that is? I mean, does it have to get to 20, 30, 50% before the country, local municipalities have to be like, we've just got to get back to work?
If we go back to work and infect a bunch of people and our hospitals pop, a bunch of people are going to die from COVID-19. A bunch of people start dying from other things. Healthcare workers will be infected. So we got to stop the spread, flatten the curve, and that's when we go back to work. And then we got to behave and act responsibly and do everything we can to not end up where we need to be in a total lockdown again. I can tell you that I know that nationally they've talked about it, but I am actively examining and talking to experts about what we can do locally to, if we get another wave of this, to rapidly test. Can we rapidly test? Can we get our hands on those supplies on the front end? I don't know the answer to that right now, but I'm asking those questions. So if it starts to come back, we can start testing and isolating people before it gets to a point where it could potentially be out of control and shut people's lives down. Bridget with Action News.
Yeah, just a couple more questions. One for the sheriff. I know he touched on crime rates a couple weeks ago being at 4%. Do we have the number of the crime rate as of right now? Has it gone up? Has it gone down? Is the Prime Osborne Hospital site still in the works? And then for Chief Powers, as far as the firefighter that tested positive is concerned, and the other firefighters that are now in quarantine, are you guys going to track the calls that they went on in a period of time and try and get in contact with people maybe they had contact with?
I'll start with the Prime Osborne potential federal hospital if needed. That is still an option if it ever got to that. But I can tell you that it appears that based on our behaviors, we've mitigated a worst case scenario, and our local hospitals, our local leaders, just in a call with them yesterday, they're all, aside from a separate field hospital, they've all and are making their own preparations to expand in-house significant bed space if needed. So they're all acting collaboratively and responsibly. And I'll let our Sheriff Williams and Chief Powers take the other two questions.
So thank you, Mayor. So Bridget, what we've seen in the last couple of weeks, so we had a spike at the beginning of this, and overall big picture, it's leveled out a bit, but we are experiencing about a 20% increase in domestic violence. Obviously, that's probably directly related to the quarantine and people spending more time together. And then we've seen some upticks in the street violence that we typically deal with. So, to address that, we're allocating about an additional 40 personnel to really a task force to do nothing but work that street level issue. And obviously spending some extra time on those domestic violence calls to ensure that when we get that initial call, that it doesn't escalate into something more serious. So it's been a challenge. I mean, we've got resources, as you can imagine, much like Keith Powers mentioned, spread pretty thin. So we have about anywhere from 150 to 200 officers a day on COVID-19 related missions. And so couple that with, coming up with some additional personnel to address some of these spikes in crime. We're managing it, but at the end of the day, it's been a challenge, but we continue to drive hard and work on it.
So yeah, I'll follow up with that and say, first of all, I'm going to ask the media to please be respectful of the men and women at Fire Station 28 and respect their privacy during this time. Obviously, they have family members that they've got to talk to and that they've been around. So I just ask you to please be respectful of those men and women. As your question was about notifying the public that has been responding, anybody that had first hand contact with the individual that's tested positive, the Fire and Rescue Department will be reaching out to them in a short period of time and informing them of that diagnosis.
Last question, it'll be Tyler with Englewood High School.
Hi, Mayor Curry. Again, one of my questions is, when things go back to normal and students are allowed to go back to the classroom, will classroom sizes decrease with fears or the possibility that someone will be asymptomatic? And that goes with churches too. Will we be able to congregate like normal, or will we have to have a limit of the number of people?
Those aren't easy questions to answer. I don't know the answer in terms of classroom sizes. That would be a discussion we would, as a community and frankly as a state, would have to have with the Department of Education, with our superintendents around the state and our school board members. But the bigger question you're asking is about churches and other gathering places. Here's what I believe. The United States of America is a resilient country that has been through some really difficult times in her history. And we're in one of those times right now. And we've always emerged, the United States of America, and we've always emerged better. Our way of life is church, sporting events, art, music, you name it. That is our way of life. And I believe that our responsible behavior now will allow us to, at some point, get back to what we consider part of our culture and normal behavior. So specifically speaking to young people and to your question, I know it's not easy to see right now because you're cooped up in your home, but our history tells us that we are a people that will emerge strong, and will emerge in a way where we can be together and we can hug each other again. We can show that we care about each other. I believe deeply within me that that day's coming. Thank you.